Hello class, so we're going to get started by looking at this scene right here from two different times. Okay, so the one on the right, actually I'll put it on the left since we're so used to going left to right with time. Okay, so this one on the left occurred at 6:30 in the morning, and then the one on the right occurred at 11:30. And you can see they're just subtly different, especially with regard to the colors. I mean, this one's much warmer. There's more oranges in this one. This one's much cooler. It's a little bit of a more of like more grays and blues in this one. So you want to make, like I said before, you'll make sure there's enough time between the two times that you work on the painting. Okay, so this one began at 6:30, so I could have done 6:30 to 7:15 for this, and this one began at 11:30, so I could have done, 11:30 to 12:15. So now let's review some of the student work, and we'll look at how they're applying paint. So what you're first going to want to do is you're going to pick a mark. Okay, like you see this student picked I believe they used a round brush, the large round, and they made these little circular marks. They're not perfect circles, but circular marks. This student, I believe, used a filbert and kind of created these longer marks. I'm not sure what brush this student used, but they chose their own types of markers as well. This student chose a fine round and made these really small stipply marks. Now, if you do choose a fine round, realize it's going to take longer. It's smaller. This student used a filbert and made these marks. And I believe this student used a flat and made kind of more of these rectangular marks. So that doesn't mean every single mark has to be exactly the same, but you want to keep it pretty consistent. Keep it in the same family of marks so that all parts of the painting look like they belong together. So the first step in our painting is to choose a mark, okay? And you're gonna realize that each brush is gonna make its own type of mark. If it's a round, if it's a filbert, a flat, a bright, it's gonna have its own unique mark. Now, depending on what angle you apply it at, okay, as well as how much pressure you apply, will also affect the mark that's made. For example, I have a round. Okay, if you just push it on the tip of the round, you're going to get a round mark. Now, if you turn the round a little sideways, you get another type of mark. If you apply a lot of pressure, you get a different mark than you apply a little pressure. Okay, so pressure, angle, both have an effect on the type of mark that's made. Okay, now let's look at the flat. Okay, so if you turn the flat this way, it's going to kind of make this rectangular mark. If you turn it this way, it's going to make another type of mark. It's a little more square. If you drag it, you're going to get even another type of mark. Okay, now let's try the filbert. Okay, this is the filbert. Okay, it's curved on top. Okay, its mark is a little softer than that mark. It's a little more curvy. Turn it sideways or this way, you can even have a different type of mark. If you drag it, you'll even have another type of mark. So what I want you to do before you even begin painting on the canvas is just get a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be any type of special paper. I'm working on mixed media paper, but you could use any type of scrap paper you have or even cardboard. And I want you to just play with the types of marks that can be made with these brushes. And then decide the type of mark that you're going to want to use. Now once you choose a type of mark, okay, you're going to want to keep it pretty consistent throughout the whole painting. And one thing I wanted to note is that in this painting, you want to paint opaquely, okay? This style works well with opaque paint application. So you want to apply it nice and buttery and quite thick. What you don't want to do is add a lot of water to it. And get a mark more like this, okay? That's not going to work well for this style of painting if it's looking more like watercolor. So you want something more like this. So now we're going to talk about optical color mixing. And optical color mixing is when you place marks next to each other and they combine in the eye. For example, if you combine green and yellow marks, you could get yellow-green. Okay, your eye will perceive yellow-green. And this is the method that the Impressionists used to create or to help replicate the luminosity of light, or to help represent the luminosity of light. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with one color, and you're going to create a series of marks with that. Now it's up to you if you want to do it in a more orderly fashion or a more random fashion. I need to get more paint. Okay, it's important that you paint this nice and buttery. Okay, now once you made one series of marks, then you're going to come through with a different color. Okay, and it's important that the color is different. Otherwise, they're all just going to blend together. Right now, I'm just trying to fill in those white spaces. Okay, now I'm gonna actually come through with a third color. You can combine as many colors as you want. Let me get a real minty green here. Okay, and as you can see, so I combine this darker green, this yellowish green, and this minty green. They all combine together to create this middle green I have here. Now, I'll show you what you don't want to do. What you don't want to do is get the same color and keep applying it into itself. Because what you'll get is the same color. Okay, this is all going to be the same color. You're not getting optical color mixing. Optical color mixing is when you're placing marks of different colors next to each other. This is the same color placed next to each other. So it all begins to blend together on the canvas as opposed to in your eye. Now we're going to talk about how to actually do the painting. Okay, we've finally reached that stage. You're ready to do the painting. Okay, and the first step, and I'm gonna do this from a photograph because of the logistical issues with trying to record this on site. It's much easier to see what I'm doing on a table, okay, than it is to set up a camera and have it over my shoulder. But you're gonna want to work from life, from direct observation. Okay, and the first step that you're gonna want to do is you're going to want to capture the general proportions of what you see. Okay, and just remember you're keeping it very, very tight, the composition, okay? You don't need a huge, you don't need to take out a huge area of a landscape, okay? Just get a small little area, maybe a bush, 2 bushes and some ground, okay? That's enough. Okay, and realize with the pencil that you don't have to get all the details. Okay, you're just trying to get a general sense of where the forms are. So when you come through with your paintbrush, you know where to place it. Okay, and that right there is enough. That's enough of a basis. Okay, and then you're gonna come through and you should have already kind of figured out what mark you want to use. Okay, I'm gonna do it in a filbert. Okay, I'm gonna start by developing this bush. Now your goal in the first layer, which is what we're talking about right now, is to capture the general shifts in color across the entire canvas. Okay, so don't worry about the subtle little nuances, just squint your eyes and push yourself back and just look for the general colors. Okay, so I'm looking at this dark green and I'm trying to figure out, I think I'm gonna do a darker green place next, a darker bluer green next to a yellower lighter green. Okay, so I need just a little bit of black. Okay, remember you want to apply this paint nice and thick, okay? Okay, now I'm gonna make a little bit of a lighter green that has a little bit more yellow in it. Now you don't want too much white canvas to be showing through, even after the first layer. At the very end, you don't want any to show through, but especially in the first layer, there should only be a little bit showing through. Okay, I know it's a little bit lighter as well as yellower on the top, so I'm gonna make another lighter green that's a little yellower. I'm gonna place that up here. Okay, because I noticed it's a little yellower up there. Okay, and I know there's a couple little spots in between that also have some yellow or yellower. Okay, now let's move on to this bush. So this bush, if you look at it, it has a little more blue in it, okay? So I know you can't see my palette, but I'm gonna pour out a little bit of blue. Let's see, even more blue. So it's pretty blue, okay? You wanna keep these marks consistent. And I know there's sometimes a lot of details, but even if there's details, just try to pull your perception back, okay? You're just trying to capture the impression of the scene. So little details aren't gonna matter as much. Okay, let's see, right here. Just see a little bit of this up here, so this up here. Okay, now we're gonna come through with a lighter green. Okay, and some of this bush kind of goes into the other one. So we're gonna start to do that. Okay, so I'm even go through with an even lighter bluish green. Okay, for these areas, because I notice they're pretty light. Stuff right here is a lot of light marks. Okay, now I know it gets a little darker right here, so I'm actually kind of step back a little bit. And I'm gonna clean my brush because it's gonna be difficult with all that white in there. I'm gonna make a darker bluish green. I think there's even a little brown in there. I might even add a little brown. Okay, and I think I even want a little bluer in here. Added a little bit more blue. So it's a little bit cooler in the shadow. Okay, then we can start to go to develop this brown, okay? But I realized the brown's a little cooler right here, right? So I added a little blue in there. And let's say you want to make something look more gray. You can always add grayer marks, or you could also add the complement. So if you apply marks that are pink, okay, which has a red hue, into something that is green, you're gonna make the overall appearance of that color look grayer, okay? Because red is the complement of green. So, you know, experiment and play when you do this. And let's try to get the colors you want. You can always paint over it. Okay, so I'll let you take it from here, but I think you got a general idea of what you need to do. You need to apply, you need to look for the general shifts in color and capture those across the entire canvas. And you're going to do this using the mark that you chose, repeating it with maybe some subtle variation, but keeping it very consistent, and using optical color mixing, where you're applying marks of different colors next to each other and then they combine in the eye.